Welcome, everyone, to the Learning Loop podcast, your best source for educational insights and trends. I'm Chris, your host, and today's special guest is Ben. He's a newly published author and a Seesaw superstar. Ben currently teaches kindergarten, and he is the founder of Kinder Rocket. Ben, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me, Chris. I really am excited to be here. As you know, I love Seesaw, and we're ready to rock.
Absolutely. Before we start, can you just tell us a little bit about this book that you and Jen Dean just published?
We just published a book. It's called it's the Edu Protocols Field Guide, primary edition. If you're not familiar with Edu Protocols are lesson frames. And basically, you take your content and then you can put it inside the lesson frame, just like a picture frame, right? You can take out the picture, put different pictures in, and that's we built these Edu protocols, which had been previously built out, but really tailored them for K through 2. And of course, we love Seesaw, Jen and I, and so these are kind of a lot of these Edu protocols are done on paper, but are also kind of done in Seesaw with our blended learning model. And so it gives you kind of 5 Edu protocols that you can use in your classroom, and of course a bunch of startup, and we even have a few chapters on Seesaw and how to get started with it. So it was really exciting to finally get that out there after a 2-year journey.
Yeah, amazing for sure. After 2 years, you're ready for it to be out in the world, and now it is. So that's super, super exciting for you guys. We'll kick off with kind of a basic question here. What inspired you to start to use Seesaw as a digital portfolio in your classroom?
Well, I don't know. I'll give you maybe the best, shortest, long answer I can. It started really kind of in the beginning. I used to be a ed tech coach, and I don't know, 7 or 8 years ago, and we were looking for a tool that we could really utilize in our starting with our lower grades, although it's kind of matriculated up. And so we looked at a few different tools, and we just kind of happened upon Seesaw and started using it. And this was in the very beginning. And I remember going to ISTE, and Seesaw was so small, they didn't even have a booth. Literally, it was just Carl, one of the founders, right? And Angela, one of the original kind of community members, and they just had some donuts in kind of the lobby, and maybe about 10 people showed up to say hi to them, maybe more. But I got my first Seesaw shirt, and ever since then, going from coach and showing how to have people use Seesaw, and I think maybe 8 years, and then the last 5-6 years in the kindergarten classroom, I've really just been using it to enhance my instruction.
Yeah, amazing. You've literally seen every version of Seesaw that's out there from start to finish, and that's so good that you continue to rely on that as a core tool in your classroom. We'll jump into our next one. How has Seesaw really helped to provide you with information that you might not have gotten paper pencil? Like, what has Seesaw done to just elevate your knowledge as an educator and as a teacher?
Well, it has to do with what I think is throwing a question back at you, Chris, the most magical feature on your computer. Do you know what the most magical tool on your computer is?
Like the recording, the microphone tools.
You got it, right? The microphone and the camera, I think, are just amazing, and you're really able to capture, every student's learning, and not only just kind of like even with paper and pencil, right? We can do some writing in class, and then they go in Seesaw, they take a picture, and they're recording what they're reading, and so it kind of gives me an idea as a teacher if they're able to read, right? They wrote it? Are they able to read what they wrote? I'm able also to kind of check in with every student if I need to, right? Every student is engaged. Every student, when they record, they're sharing their thinking. And with paper and pencil, I can look at it all and see every student's, but I get a little bit more, I think, information. But not even just me as the teacher getting more information. It's also, I feel, the students get more practice and repetition by being able to kind of use that record feature, the camera and the microphone. And so overall, you just get a lot more information as a teacher, and students get more practice.
Yeah, and the more information you have as a teacher, the better decisions you can make for their education moving forward.
Definitely.
Can you describe a situation where Seesaw has really helped to benefit a specific student that you might have had? Maybe there was a trouble spot that they had. Maybe there was just one tool that really just helped them to blossom as a learner. Do you have any specific situations that you've run across?
It's hard to just pick one.
Yeah, sure.
I mean, a lot of my years, it's been several years where I have kids that, either due to language or other kind of other issues maybe going on, that they wouldn't chat with their partner. Turn to your partner and share, and they wouldn't always turn to their partner and share. But it was amazing how some of these kids that didn't like to talk, they would go in, open their computer, and record in Seesaw. And so it's been almost every year I've had like one or two of those cases where kids maybe wouldn't want to partner share, wouldn't want to talk a lot, but they'd open their computer and they would record in Seesaw and share their learning and get to practice their language. And then of course, one more example, I had a little boy who was autistic, and he struggled a lot with kind of showing what he knew with paper and pencil. But when I could put some words in there and he could drag things and he could record things, he was actually able to demonstrate that he knew a lot more than he actually was able to produce just with pen and paper. And so it's really kind of helped, I think, give kids other opportunities to demonstrate their learning. So
amazing. Providing more opportunities, removing more barriers, and really just allowing them to express what they know, so that you as a teacher, like you said, you have that information, then so you know where they are and what to give them next. What types of activities have you found to be most effective in your classroom? It can be any subject or anything. Can you just share some perspective on like what have you found that's really just resonated with your students?
Well, and we're specifically thinking about Seesaw. I got to say, kind of creating my own. It's in the beginning, it's a lot of work, but creating my own activities because in Seesaw, because for example, the other day we were playing a game, we're practicing addition, and we're practicing addition with dice, and the students get out a piece of paper and they roll the dice and they kind of record both numbers and they practice their adding. Then the next day, the same activity, but instead of doing it with dice on paper, now we're doing it with dice and Seesaw.
Yeah.
And the fact that these two activities, I feel like, really complement each other. They're able to kind of practice the same skill, but they're able to practice in a different way. And of course, one bonus of having it in Seesaw is the fact that they get to record. And so I really love kind of maybe mirroring activities. I like to call it like using digital and analog, right? We'll do the lesson one way on paper maybe, and then we might reinforce it the next day in Seesaw, or even sometimes we'll do it in the day. We'll do it one way with manipulatives and then jump in right into Seesaw. Even just, when we're talking about adding, we turn on our microphone, we get our Unifix cubes, and we say, we can hold up our Unifix cubes and we can say, well, this is the number 5 and this is how I made the number 5. So it just really kind of using that tool to kind of support the analog components, if you will, with the digital components, and kind of matching those up with each other is one of my favorite ways and some of my favorite activities, whether it's in language arts or math and ELD, any subject.
Absolutely. And it sounds too like you're really having your ear too around like what keeps students engaged and how to make sure that they're engaged in that content and they're learning all the time versus potentially doing something that they might be sick of doing. They might be bored through it. You're really finding Seesaw to be that perfect combo to really help you have those kind of activities that students stay engaged with as they learn.
Definitely.
I'm going to jump into a question that reflects back on what you were talking about earlier. How have you seen Seesaw really support students who might be multilingual? Maybe they're exploring new languages, they're learning new languages, but different than what they have at home. How have you seen Seesaw to really benefit students who are multilingual?
Well, I love just the fact that you can record your audio inside of the lesson, right? And so whether it's kind of recording your instructions, again, you demonstrate your instructions with the whole class, but that's not always enough. So you can attach your instructions as an example video with audio, right? And students can listen to it again. I love kind of putting the instructions, especially for our pre-readers. You can add an item in there. Like a lot of times I'll put an emoji ear on there because they need to listen, and I'll just record some audio on the emoji ear and kind of go over the instructions again or give them a sentence frames. I love too how, especially thinking about the Seesaw lessons, how a lot of the Seesaw lessons in the lesson library are both in English and in Spanish. So some of my students that maybe they saw it in English, maybe they want to hear it again in Spanish, they can click on that little icon and hear the instructions again. And the other tool, the other reason, going back, the other tool too that I like is just, again, that the fact that the record button, some kids are really nervous to practice maybe their language in front of other people, but they're a lot more willing sometimes to record inside Seesaw. And so it just kind of helps those students have another chance to practice their oral language. They can get some audio, and visual support. And so I feel like it's not just a great tool for like multilingual learners. It's a great tool, I feel like, for all types of learners that really supports learning in different ways.
Yeah, for sure. And allows them to express the learning in the way that fits them best. Like you said, whether they're speaking in a different language, whether they're just trying to articulate their thoughts in a different way, they have all the tools there to be able to express that. We're going to jump into our loopy question. This is a question we ask every guest here since it's the Learning Loop podcast. We ask a loopy or a silly question here. If you had a magic wand that would allow you to become an animal just for one day, what animal would you choose to be?
That's definitely a difficult question. My original answer would be, a dog, because I love dogs. But I think it would be fun if I could be an animal for a day, maybe to be a kangaroo, because you just you can jump pretty far.
Yeah.
There's lots of beautiful land in Australia. So I think it would be fun to try being a kangaroo for a day, hop around a little bit.
That sounds awesome. And you have a little pouch too to carry snacks or whatever you need to built right in. It's all perfect.
That's right.
Awesome. Final question here. We always try to end our episode with some advice for people listening. Maybe there is a teacher here who's new to Seesaw. Maybe they're just new to technology in general. What are like 2 or 3 things that you would tell this educator that they can start with to be able to get to the point that you are now, Ben, to be just a pro Seesaw user, somebody who's really meeting the needs of other students and keeping them engaged as they're learning?
I think sometimes it's funny because, I think about certain teachers like I myself was very scared of like watercolor paints when I first went to kindergarten, or even Play-Doh. I'm like, how is this going to go? It's going to be like crazy, but you get the things out, you teach the kids the expectations, and then you're good to go. And I feel like it's the same with the computer, with any tool, right? You get the tool out, you practice it, you little by little, you kind of layer on the tools, layer on what you're going to use, right? Just like with watercolor, I'm not going to have them paint a masterpiece in the beginning, but I will kind of show them the things that they need.
Yeah.
And I feel like it's the same thing with Seesaw. And again, just kind of jump in there, give it a try. And I think a lot of times you're going to be surprised. The other thing is to realize that whenever you're using technology, things are going to go wrong, right? And so you always just kind of have to keep that in your mind, and it's okay whether it's saying today, hey, the internet's not working, we're going to give it a go tomorrow. Whether it's like certain students, having some technology helpers in your class to help you out, but just understanding that things are going to go wrong when you use technology. With that being said, the first time is always going to be the hardest, right? The first time students are going to log in, it's always the most chaotic. The first time they're kind of using new tools, it's going to be a little bit more chaotic. But I think kind of really just kind of giving it a try, keep on pushing, realizing there's going to be some hiccups, but I think really the benefits outweigh the negatives, and just really think about it. A lot of times we think about technology as like a replacement, right? Technology really shouldn't be seen as a replacement. It should be seen as an enhancement, right? So we don't want to just say, hey, we're not going to do our paper lesson, we're just going to do our technology lesson. On the same time, we're not just going to do everything on the computer, right? Like I talked about, how can we really thinking about using it as a piece of our instructions? And that's one of the things I love about Seesaw, is because it's not just like a program where kids are going in and pushing buttons, right? It's really something I can use to enhance my instruction, right? Do the lesson one way in this capacity, do the lesson the next day in this capacity. And when you think about that, again, it's a part of your lesson, right? It's a part of your instruction. It's not just something extra. So really thinking about, it's a tool to enhance learning. It's a tool to support learning. It's not just a supplement, right? It's really thinking about how it's going like this. And again, that's one of the reasons I love Seesaw, because it really can be paired with kind of any curriculum that you're using to enhance that curriculum. So
Absolutely. And you using it also in kindergarten can be accessed by all students as well. So love those tips, being persistent, starting small, making sure it's supplementing, and also making sure it's enhancing everything you're doing. Such powerful advice spoken from a true sage in this realm. Ben, we're at time. I just want to say thank you so much for being here. Thanks for taking time out of your day, and thank you for sharing such amazing insights with everybody. We gleaned so many amazing things off of it, so thank you so much for being here.
well, thanks for having me. And feel free, if you're out there and you're listening. I always love connecting with other Seesaw users. And so, whether it's in the Seesaw and Activity Library or on some other social media platforms, a lot of times you can find me at Cogswell, COGSWELL_Ben. And I would love to connect with you and see how, just like Chris and I met online, love to connect with you and see how you're learning Seesaw and get some great ideas.
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much, Ben.
Bye bye.